Hitler was waiting, in the wrong place. Not because he guessed wrong, because someone lied to him. On June 6, 1944, thousands of Allied soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy. They were told to expect catastrophic losses. The defenses were there. Fortified positions, artillery, machine guns, everything required to stop an invasion like this cold. And yet, something was missing. Germany's strongest defensive force in the West, the 15th Army, wasn't there. It was 300 kilometers away, waiting for an invasion that never came. They weren't unprepared. They were looking in the wrong place, because for 3 years, everything they believed had been shaped by one man. Juan Pujol García was not a spy. He had no training, no contacts, no access. He ran a chicken farm outside Barcelona. In 1940, watching Europe collapse, Garcia decided he would act. He went to British intelligence in Madrid. They turned him away. He had nothing to offer, so he went to the Germans instead. He told them he was already building a network inside Britain, that he could give them access no one else could. He was in Lisbon. He had never set foot in England, but the Germans believed he had. The Germans said yes. They gave him a handler. They gave him money. They gave him a code name, Alaric, and Garcia began to build. Picture him in a rented room in Lisbon in 1941. No radio equipment, no secure channel, a Portuguese railway timetable, a blue guide to England, a tourist map essentially, a map of the London Underground bought from a bookshop. He is writing intelligence reports. The reports describe troop movements near Bristol, convoy schedules out of Liverpool, morale assessments from military contacts in the southeast of England. Each report names sources. Each source has a background, a motivation, a reason for cooperating. None of them exist. None of it should have worked. But the Germans weren't checking if it was real. They were checking if it was consistent. He posts the letters through the German embassy in Madrid. The Abwehr reads them in Berlin. They're impressed. MI5 was watching German intelligence operations in Britain. They had turned most of the Abwehr's real agents, the ones who had actually landed in England, and were running them as double agents, feeding Berlin controlled information. Then they noticed something strange. German intelligence was receiving reports that didn't match anything their own doubled agents had sent. Someone outside their operation was feeding the Abwehr. Someone apparently in England, apparently with real access. They traced the source. It led to Lisbon. It led to Garcia. This time, British intelligence didn't turn him away. He was extracted to Britain in April 1942. Given a handler, a Spanish art dealer named Tomás Harris, who had been recruited into MI5. Given a workspace. Given a code name. They called him Garbo, after Greta Garbo, because, Harris said, he was the greatest actor he had ever seen. What came next is the part that should be impossible to believe. Over the following 2 years, Garcia, working with Harris but driving the creative architecture himself, built a fictional spy network inside German intelligence's imagination. At its peak, the network had 27 sub-agents. Each one was real, inside the Abwehr's files. There was a Venezuelan student in Glasgow, anti-Soviet, willing to sell information for cash. There was a Welsh nationalist who believed Britain deserved to lose the war. There was a disaffected British officer in the Southwest, bitter about his treatment by the military establishment. There was a contact inside the Ministry of Information. Every one of them invented. The Germans paid their salaries, expressed concern when one fell ill, sent operational instructions addressed to them by name. Every detail had to hold, every name, every location, every report. If one piece didn't match, if one detail couldn't be confirmed, the entire structure collapsed. and there would be no second chance. When Garcia decided one agent had become a liability, a character who had theoretically learned too much, he killed him off, reported that the man had died of disease while traveling. The Germans sent a letter of condolence to his widow. Garcia wrote back on her behalf. By late 1943, Garcia had done something more dangerous than fool the Germans. He had taught them how to trust him. He had become one of the most valued human intelligence sources in the entire German military apparatus. The Abwehr cross-referenced his reports against signals intelligence, against other agents, against captured documents. Everything aligned. And that was the problem. Because every verification they ran confirmed details that Garcia had designed to be confirmable. Every cross-check landed on sources that he controlled. The system wasn't failing. It was working exactly as intended, just on a foundation that wasn't real. He tracked every lie in a private ledger, which agent had seen which thing, which contact operated in which region, which report had said what. Because if Berlin checked the wrong detail, it ended there. One contradiction, one mismatch, and 3 years collapsed instantly. He maintained it without a single detected error. In January 1944, Allied Command finalized Operation Overlord, the Normandy landings, the largest amphibious invasion in history. They also finalized Operation Fortitude, the deception operation designed to convince Germany the invasion was coming somewhere else. Not just misdirection, a full alternative reality. Specifically, Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel, the most logical landing site. The move any strategist would expect. Garcia was central to Fortitude's execution. His network began producing intelligence that pointed consistently toward Pas-de-Calais. Reports from his Glasgow contact, assessments from his officer in the southwest, signals from the Ministry of Information source. The fictional 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, was described, documented, given a commander, General Patton, and confirmed through Garcia's network as the real invasion force. The Germans believed it, not because they were careless, because the evidence was overwhelming, consistent, and came from a source they had trusted for 3 years. June 6, 1944, before dawn. The first Allied soldiers were already in the water. By first light, the beaches were contested. By mid-morning, it was clear this was not a raid. It was not a probe. Thousands of men, hundreds of ships. The scale was undeniable. And in those first hours, while the landing was still fragile, while the soldiers were still fighting their way off the sand, Germany had the means to destroy it. The Panzer Reserve, 2 armored divisions, the 12th SS Panzer and the Panzer Lehr, were stationed within striking distance of Normandy. Together, they fielded hundreds of tanks, self-propelled guns, and tens of thousands of mechanized troops. Military historians have since estimated that if either division had reached the beaches within the first 24 hours, the landing force, still exposed, still unestablished, still without the supply infrastructure it needed, would almost certainly have been driven back into the sea. The soldiers on the beach had no answer for armor at that scale. Not yet. Field Marshal von Rundstedt understood this. He requested immediate release of the Panzer Reserve. Hitler refused. The panzers were under his personal command. They could not move without his order. And Hitler was waiting. Waiting because everything he had been told, everything his most trusted intelligence asset had confirmed, said Normandy was a feint. The real invasion was still coming. Pas-de-Calais. Release the panzers now, send them to Normandy, and the coast would be exposed when the real Allied force crossed. So he held them. The first day passed. The beachhead held. The second day, reinforcements arrived. The Allies pushed inland. The third day, Garcia sent another message. His network had new intelligence. The main Allied force, Fusag, Patton's army, was still assembled in the south of England, still preparing. Normandy was a diversion. Pas-de-Calais was still the target. The panzers did not move. By the time Hitler accepted that Normandy was the real invasion, that there was no second wave coming, that the feint was the invasion, 6 days had passed. The beachhead was established, reinforced, and no longer vulnerable to a panzer counterattack in the way it had been on the morning of June 6th. The window had closed. Garcia had kept it closed, with words. There was one moment when the entire structure should have collapsed, when it became undeniable, even to Hitler, that Normandy was the real invasion. The Germans faced an uncomfortable question. Their most trusted source had told them repeatedly that Normandy was a feint. He had been wrong. So had the network been compromised? Had Garbo been feeding them false intelligence? Garcia moved before they could reach that conclusion. He sent an urgent message to his handler. He was furious, he said. One of his sub-agents, the man positioned to watch Allied troop movements in the south of England, had filed a report without authorization, had jumped ahead of confirmed intelligence, had told Garcia that the Normandy landing looked like a feint based on incomplete information, and Garcia, trusting his network, had passed it up the chain. The sub-agent had been wrong. Garcia had been deceived by his own man. He was, he said, taking full responsibility for the error. He expected no forgiveness. The Germans wrote back. They told him the fault was not his, that any network of that scale carried human risk, that his record of 3 years spoke for itself, that they trusted him completely. The moment that should have ended everything instead made the Germans trust him more, because he had come forward, because he had not hidden it, because that was exactly what an honest agent would do. Germany never found out. In November 1944, 5 months after D-Day, with the Western Front collapsing, the Abwehr awarded Juan Pujol García the Iron Cross, 2nd class, for exceptional service to the German Reich, for the intelligence that had confirmed Pas-de-Calais, for the network that had never failed them, for 3 years of accurate, consistent, reliable reporting from an agent they trusted completely. The British, separately, awarded him the MBE, Member of the Order of the British Empire. Same operation, same man, both sides. He is, as far as historians have been able to determine, the only person in the Second World War to receive military decorations from both the Allied and Axis powers for the same set of actions. In 1949, Juan Pujol García faked his own death in Angola. He had reasons. The war was over, but the world the war had made was dangerous for people who knew what he knew and had done what he had done. He disappeared. He was found in 1984, living in Caracas, Venezuela, running a small language school. A British journalist tracked him down. Garcia was in his 70s. He agreed to talk. He returned to England once more in 1984, 40 years after D-Day. He visited the Normandy beaches. He stood on the sand where the landing had happened, where the soldiers had come ashore into a defense that wasn't fully ready for them. He didn't say much about it publicly. The Iron Cross is in a museum archive. The MBE is somewhere in Venezuela. The Abwehr's files, meticulous, detailed, complete, are in the German Federal Archives. They describe, in careful bureaucratic language, the most trusted intelligence asset on the Western Front. Everything in those files is real. Everything those files describe is fiction. There were 100 reasons D-Day worked. Logistics, weather, courage, the staggering coordination of the largest military operation in human history. But the German 15th Army stood 300 kilometers away, waiting for an invasion that existed only in a ledger in a room in Lisbon, maintained by a man who had been turned away, who had no training, no credentials, no authority to do what he did. He built the lie before anyone asked him to. He maintained it after anyone could have reasonably expected it to hold. And the Germans, who had checked, who had verified, who had done everything that professional intelligence services are supposed to do, they never found the seam. The Iron Cross arrived by courier in late 1944. Garcia signed for it. Garcia sent one more message. The invasion in Normandy, he said, was still a diversion. The real one was coming. They believed him. The German 15th Army stayed where it was, 300 kilometers away, waiting. The invasion they were prepared for never came. The one that mattered had already begun. By the time they moved, it didn't matter anymore. There are other stories like this, where the official record is complete, accurate, and entirely misleading, where what appears to be one thing was always something else, and the evidence was hidden not because it was destroyed, but because no one thought to question the source. Some of that evidence still exists. The Vatican has kept records of nearly everything that happened within its walls for 1,000 years. The compromises, the transactions, the proceedings it would prefer to have forgotten. For centuries, it controlled who could see them. In 2019, it quietly changed the name of the archive. They said it was a translation issue. The records inside didn't change.